What up, everyone? Welcome back to Knicks in 4, where we talk everything Knicks. I'm your host, Ayers. If you're new to the channel and you're enjoying what you're watching, please feel free to like the channel, subscribe, share, comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's get into it. So today's topic of conversation revolves around RJ Barrett. And the question that we are going to ask ourselves today is whether or not we ultimately made the wrong decision not giving up RJ in a package deal to acquire Donovan Mitchell. So what we're going to do is take a look at RJ's performance thus far this year, more specifically his last 3 games, take a look at his statistics and evaluate overall his expectations, how he should be performing this year, and what we may have to look forward to, what season will bring us eventually. So let's first talk about RJ overall. So, I'm a big fan of RJ Barrett, as I'm sure a lot of Knicks fans are. But I'm sure I can speak for a lot of Knicks fans when I say that he's been a huge disappointment so far this season. In fact, I can make the argument that perhaps he's been the biggest disappointment of the New York Knicks early NBA 2022-23 season. Now, what's going on with RJ? The question that we have to ask ourselves is, how do we get here to this point? So obviously, we have a lot of faith in RJ. He was selected 3rd in the NBA draft a few years ago behind Ja Morant, behind Zion Williamson. Now, while those guys have, come into their own and developed themselves into superstars, RJ is still, on the outside looking in, nowhere near, the talents of a superstar. And I think at this point, it's hard to question whether or not he's even a star. He's been very up and down, very erratic his entire career, and it's becoming more alarming recently, especially given the fact that RJ just recently signed a new contract with the Knicks. Congratulations to RJ, but with a new contract comes expectations. This is no longer year 1 RJ or year 2 RJ. This is year 4 RJ. So at this point, Knicks fans are expecting a lot. So before we get into more about RJ and what we expect from him, let's take a look at his last few games for the New York Knicks. So last night they played against the Denver Nuggets. And what we're going to do is take a look at his field goal percentage from 3, which has been horrendous. So let's take a look at last night's game. So taking a look here, we can see RJ 0 for 9. I mean, complete donut. He looked very bad last night. I mean, it's really time to question what his mental fortitude is, because there seems to be a bit of a pattern that occurs at some point every season thus far in his 3.5 years of his NBA career. So he was 0 for 9 last night from 3. Now, before the Nuggets game against Utah, let's take a look at his 3-point percentage. 3-point field goals, 0 for 5. Okay? Still very bad. And even the game before that against Oklahoma City, where's RJ? 0 for 2. Now, riddle me this. RJ Barrett in 3 consecutive games goes 0 for 16 from the 3-point range. That is insane. Okay? I don't know how you can explain that. I mean, sure, RJ has mentioned something about being sick. Maybe he has the flu. There's a bug going around the team, perhaps. That's something that, obviously, if you're not 100% ready, you don't have the energy, you have a cold or fever or whatever, you're not going to perform, obviously, to the, 100% capacity of your abilities. However, I'm not sure if I'm buying, sickness as in, the sole reason why his play has been impacted, because even before, mention of this sickness, he was still struggling. Now, the thing about RJ is that, obviously he's never been a knockdown 3-point shooter. He's been up and down his entire career, but I don't recall it ever being this bad. Sure, RJ goes through slumps. Every player goes through their slumps naturally as part of the game. But this is looking pretty bad now, especially given the fact that, again, he signed a contract. So at this point, the New York Knicks organization is heavily invested into RJ. We look at RJ as being the epicenter, the focal point of how our franchise can, progress in the future. We gave a bag to Mitch. We gave the bag to RJ. Those 2 guys are, young, talented, players that we hope that we can build around in the future. And so far, even with Mitch, Mitch having, more injury issues, doesn't look good for us. It doesn't fare, well, especially given the fact that, at least I can speak for myself on this, that, when we added RJ Brunson, that was supposed to be the piece to make everything, work. Take the pressure off of Julius, get the ball out of Julius's hands, free up space for RJ to operate on the outside. But while Jalen Brunson is doing what he has to do as a point guard, making it a lot easier for other players, it seems like RJ has taken even a further step back. Now, in my mind, RJ was supposed to be either the number 1 or number 2 option. But I think it's pretty clear at this point, given the 15, 16 games that the Knicks have played, that RJ has taken a bit of a back seat, and he's now the 3rd option. You have Jalen Brunson, obviously, as number 1. Julius is number 2. And, it's pretty clear that RJ is a distant 3rd at this point in terms of the offense running through him on a priority. So, RJ has to, do some gut checking, look at himself in the mirror, because, we have a lot of expectations for RJ at this point. This is the time where we expect him to start really showing us, proving himself in this league, establishing himself, making a mark as a star at the very least, an all-star, which we all think he's capable of. We just haven't seen it on a consistent basis. So, at this point, we got to stop babying RJ. He has a lot that he has to account for, and he has to be responsible for himself. And, Knicks fans, we're running out of patience. Look, we had an opportunity to get Donovan Mitchell. Now, obviously, we don't know what happened behind closed doors, but the proposed deal, the rumored deal, was that we had a deal on the table, which included RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, Obi Toppin, and, whatever picks Utah could get their hands on. Now, what ultimately ended up happening for the deal to fall through, we'll never know. Maybe, at the last minute, Utah, wanted something else, and the Knicks said, hey, we don't want to mortgage our entire future just for Donovan Mitchell, who is a superstar, but not like one of those KD, LeBron type superstars, obviously like tier 3 superstar, the lowest tier of a superstar. So whether or not that is a decision that was a good decision, that remains to be seen, because obviously it's still a very small sample size, and we can't, be hasty in making a conclusion on such a, small sample size. So we have to pause there, but at the same time, it's not looking good. Is this a sign of things to come, or is this just like, a little blurb, something for us not to really pay mind to? Now, the other thing that is quite interesting is that, with the redevelopment of Cam Reddish into the lineup, being installed, being a consistent rotational piece in the starting lineup, what's making it even more alarming with RJ is the fact that Cam Reddish is looking very good out there. So while Cam Reddish is looking excellent, RJ is looking the opposite. I imagine a scenario which I didn't think was even possible to have both RJ and Cam in the starting lineup together, given their history back being on the same team in college, that would be an opportunity for both of them to thrive, to flourish with each other. Obviously, they played with each other before, but what's happening now is that Cam is looking much better than RJ. I mean, who would have thought that would have happened? Even though I was always one of those people that, in comparison, RJ to Cam, I was always one of those people that thought that Cam always had a higher ceiling, just in terms of his raw talent. Now, RJ may be a better NBA-ready player in terms of, the X's and O's, being more consistent. Even though RJ is not that consistent, but he's, more consistent than Cam Reddish, obviously. But, when Cam is lighting it up, Cam looks special out there. And RJ, while I mentioned before he's good in many areas, he's not great in one area. So it's very weird to see how that whole dynamic is working out. But he's looked terrible, honestly. And it's not just his three-point percentage. It's his standard field goals as well. Going back to the statistics, let's take a look back at this Oklahoma City game and look at his standard field goals. So, again, 0 for 2 from 3 against Oklahoma City, but he was also 2 for 10 overall. That's terrible. -14 on the plus-minus. Going back to the Jazz game, 5 for 18. All right, he was a +3 in that game, so, he wasn't a detriment to the team, but still horrible field goal percentage. And, again, going back to the game last night, 4 for 18. So he was a combined 0 for 16 from 3 over the last 3 games. Shoots horribly from the field goal, 2 for 10, 5 for 18, 4 for 18. Nothing is going good for him right now, And the thing about RJ, his game is becoming quite predictable now. It's like he'll, try to penetrate the lane, try to muscle people down, outmatch people, manipulate the defense to get his advantage once he drives. It's either he's doing that or he's trying to jack up threes, and none of those, things are working. So you have to ask yourself, if you're not, if your go-to moves, your go-to, shots aren't falling, you got to develop a different way to score. Now, this has been a thing that about RJ that I thought he would have developed by now, and that's a mid-range shot. If your three is not working, you're having trouble, penetrating the lane, making layups, struggling there. What else can you resort to? You got to, divvy it out with a little bit of mid-range to throw the defense a little bit off what they expect from you. And in year 4, he hasn't done that. So, it remains to be seen what we're going to see from RJ going forward. Do I think this is something that will continue? I think his inconsistency will continue. Will he continue to have consecutive bad games like this? Most likely not, but you know how RJ is. He's had 3 terrible games. I guarantee this game against the Warriors coming up next, he's probably going to have a 25-point plus game. Maybe the following game he'll have another decent to good game, and then maybe he'll revert back to this horrible play like he has been his entire career. It's been very up and down, unfortunately. And, if we are to, have any hope in the Knicks having a bright future, that revolves around RJ's development. If he is going to turn into a star that we believe he can become, then yes, the Knicks have a bright future. But if he, at this point, just starts regressing and it's a downward trend, not just for, this time period right now, but for the whole season and his career going forward, that's a big problem. Then that would mean we made the wrong decision not getting rid of him, bringing in Donovan Mitchell, and, we're just stuck with what we have. I mean, obviously, we committed money to Mitch again. We committed money to RJ. We have money locked up with Julius. So if the players that we invested in are not going to perform to the standards that we expect of them, we're pretty much doomed. And there's not much we can do. I mean, even if you wanted to trade him, that's not a good look for the franchise either, because, look, Mitch and RJ are the first, Knick draftees to be offered extension contracts in over 20 years. I forget who the last person was. I believe it was Charlie Ward, who was the last person that the Knicks drafted to actually give a new contract to. So that means something, but, RJ, you got to meet us halfway here, man. I mean, again, you're about to graduate from high school. You're a senior. It's time to step up. It's time to become the leader of the team. Now, Jalen Brunson and Julius, they'll carry it as long as they can, but we expect that mantle to pass on to you. So, at the end of the day, I have faith in RJ. I think he can, turn this all around and, make something of this season. But, in all honesty, it's not looking good, bro. You got to do something to elevate yourself, because fans are running out of patience. And you know how it is in New York, right? We love you one minute, we hate you the next. And while we've loved RJ these 3.5 going on 4 years, his clock is ticking. And if he doesn't start performing to the level that we want him to and need him to, then, fans are going to start calling for his head. He's going to end up asking for a trade, and, we're going to be back to square one again. But anyway, guys, that's going to be all for today. We got the game coming up against Golden State. Steph just dropped 50 points the other night. So, despite the trouble that they're having, they're going to come out, lights out, trying to kill us on the 3-point line. So we have to be careful there. But I have faith in this Knicks team. I like the tenacity that they showed. I like the toughness that they showed. And I'm confident in where we can go. Now, will Tibbs ruin it for us like he has many times, many occasions? We'll see. Will RJ continue this slump, or will he turn it up? Can Julius give us the effort that he gave us in the Denver game consistently? These are all questions that we don't have the answers to. If I was a betting man, I would say no, they don't do it. But this is a bet that I would be happy to lose because, I care about this team winning. I like the personalities of these guys. I don't want to see anybody get broken up, but time's ticking. We got to make decisions, and players got to start performing to the level they should. But again, guys, that's going to be all for today. Catch you on the rebound. Peace.